think people are expecting us to talk about Ayurveda and have a little cage fight.
Ayurveda is a pseudoscience.
Do you think all of it is a pseudoscience?
Tell me one traditional Ayurvedic formulation which is recommended or approved for any disease condition by any clinical society in the world. Huberman is not a clinical doctor, so I would not take his advice as clinical advice at all.
What's happening in India where such intense problems are happening? Is it correct to say that the number of patients you're getting is increasing?
There is a lot of patients on the wait list who are actually dying without getting a liver on time.
How long is the wait list?
People who have multiple sexual partners, they have a high risk of developing sexually transmitted disease like hepatitis B or C.
You think eating street food plays a role?
Pani puri, chutneys, especially this sharbat. You have these sharbat drinks that you get on the roadsides. They all spread hepatitis. Do you know how the organ donation works? Chinese has a different idea. They kill people on the death list and use the organs for the patients.
People would consider this murder.
It is murder.
I know that there's two sets of audience members watching this. The first set is the ones who are watching it for the liver doc only and who haven't seen too much of TRS. I promise you, it's not as pseudoscience oriented as some media portals and some Twitter accounts would tell you. We dive deep into science on this episode. But for the second group of people who are watching this who watch TRS regularly, I'll tell you about this episode. As you know, we've been creating a lot of podcasts with doctors lately. We've been deep diving into biology. I've never had more fun deep diving into biology than I did with liver doc, Dr. Abby Phillips. He's got a very ferocious persona on Twitter. A lot of his opinions polarize a lot of people. But guess who else's opinions polarize people? Yours truly. So there were points in the show that we had to debate a few things, but mainly this is an exploration of science and specifically an exploration of one of the most important organs in your body, the liver. There's a lot of very, very pertinent biology-related content in this one. I enjoyed the heck out of this conversation. I enjoyed the heck out of meeting the liver doc, honestly. And you'll see why I'm saying that by the end of this episode. I request both sets of audiences to not hold any prejudices while watching this particular podcast. There's an audience that dislikes me. There's an audience that dislikes him. But I think that the internet needs more of this where two echo chambers, two different verticals of the internet collide and grow together. Lots of love to all the audience members watching this. But for now, it's the liver doc on TRS. Do I call you liver doc or do I call you Dr. Abby?
Just call me Abby.
Okay.
Yeah.
People view you as a bit of one of the Avengers of medicine on the internet. I don't know if you're an Avengers fan.
I'm a big fan of anything graphic novel. It includes superheroes.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm a fan.
Dragon Ball Z?
I have the same one.
Oh, okay. You like DBZ?
Of course.
Okay. Lovely. So, you're one of the key Z fighters on the internet when it comes to the medical community.
Yeah.
I think we live in a very politically heated up time.
I understand. Yes.
And
I get your point.
Yeah, that kind of paints an image of healing, medicine, all these things onto many people's heads. The thing is, India's population is so big that all you can do is do your best, put it out there, and then whoever has to gain from you will gain from you. You'll find opponents, etc.
Of course.
So while you polarize the internet in many ways, I think in the medical community, you're respected and loved throughout. That's the sense I got. All the doctors got very happy that you were coming on. The ones I spoke to.
I'm glad to hear this.
Yeah. There were some things they were saying. They said that he has very strong opinions. Yeah. But, I don't see the problem with that because I think the world is built out of people who have strong opinions in the first place.
In certain areas, it's important to have strong opinions because at some point, it's not easy to change everyone. And we are not looking to change everyone. The way they think, the way they have their own style of health-seeking behavior. We can't change all of that. Yeah. But at some point, a few people will understand that this is how it is because consistently and strongly these opinions were voiced. And at some point, there is going to be evidence also for that, empirical evidence that, these opinions were not opinions anymore. Now there is actual factual basis to it. And that's when people understand that these were all important. So I'm not people like me who look at fighting health misinformation or giving healthcare education. we don't expect changes to happen the next day. It might happen only maybe after my lifetime, or maybe decades later. People will come and see that, these things were actually important for those good things that are going to happen in the future. So that is the whole deal. So I'm not looking at polarizing anyone. I'm not looking at, making sure my opinions are the only opinions heard. No, nothing like that. It's everything put together and shown together from both perspectives, and people can choose logically which is going to be good for them.
We have to begin at the basics, because the format of the show is that we first grip the 8-year-olds, the 9-year-olds, and let them understand the beginning of our conversation about the liver and all that.
Okay.
So my only angle here is, let's include everyone in this conversation, because I don't want to shoo away the people who are your haters. I don't want to shoo away the people who are my haters.
100%. Yeah.
Everyone be included.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's bodies are the same. Are everyone's bodies the same?
It's going to be an interesting conversation when it comes to the liver.
Livers can be slightly different.
So we're going to talk about that now, about the liver.
Let's start at the ekdam basics of what a liver does. Can I have a go at it? And then as a doctor, you correct me.
Of course.
Okay, where I'm saying something wrong.
Yep.
Please feel free to interrupt. I'll give you my rudimentary understanding of what I remember from school.
Great.
Stop biology in 10th standard, but I loved biology till the 10th.
Wow, okay.
So it's got multiple functions. Urban legend is that liver is one of the only organs that regenerates fast, which is why people use it as an excuse to drink. I'll drink and like my liver will be fine. So it regenerates fast. It's got multiple functions. It's one of the key detoxifiers of the body. Right. So if there are toxins that your body gains from food or your habits, I believe in your intestines, there is blood vessels, some kind of veins that send it to the liver.
Wow.
Am
Excellent.
I right?
Yes.
Am I right? What's the name of that?
So we have the superior mesenteric vein that joins with another vein that comes from the spleen. Right. So superior mesenteric vein actually joins from it comes from the intestines. It joins the splenic vein, and then it becomes the portal vein, which goes into the liver.
Gotcha.
And that's the vein you're talking about.
Basically, your blood is sent to the liver. Yeah. The liver purifies the blood. If you're drinking too much alcohol, in the process of purification, it gets very damaged.
Yeah.
And I think then the blood is carried to the heart, if I'm not mistaken, and then sent to the rest of the body.
Exactly.
But the thing is, over time, as you age, I am assuming that your function of regeneration reduces, because as is the case with aging, with all your body's parts, regeneration becomes slower. So your body can't take that much load as you grow older. So one way to easily damage your liver is alcohol. Yeah. Another way, possibly, I'm assuming, could be like, eating a lot of shit, like fatty liver disease.
Yeah, I mean, to oversimplify it, yeah. But I can just, expand on all of these points that you said. So just to expand on it, so the liver is by weight, it's the second largest organ in the body. So in adults, it weighs about 1.2 kilograms in women and about 1.5 kilograms in men.
What is the heaviest?
The heaviest is skin. Yeah, so if you take the whole skin out and weigh it, it becomes like 4 kilograms.
Really?
Yeah. So the heaviest organ is skin. The second heaviest is liver. Third heaviest is the brain. So it's a second heaviest organ.
Sure.
Now the liver is very special, which is why I also chose hepatology as one of my professional career practices. It's very special because one, you said it has definitely it's one of the most powerfully regenerating organ ever, which is why we have that Greek mythology where Prometheus, who stole the fire from gods, was punished by the gods, and he was chained on a rock, and every night an eagle would come and feast on his liver, but the eagle would not kill him. He'll just eat part of the liver and then go away. And his liver would regenerate the next day for that eagle to come back and again eat the same parts. So this was like an eternal punishment. So until and unless, somebody actually kills the eagle or somebody kills Prometheus, this punishment is going to go on for life. So that is how the whole aspect of liver generation was first discussed in mythology. Now, if you cut a healthy liver, 90% of it, and just cut it off from the body, the rest 10% can actually become a whole liver, which is about 1.2 kilograms to 1.5 kilograms in 4 to 6 weeks. That is how fast it regenerates.
Even in a slightly older person?
Yeah. So as you get older, your regeneration capacity is still the same, but then it is affected by a lot of other things. For example, you have fatty livers, you have other chronic illnesses in you, and also your regeneration potential, or the potential for the liver to actually to respond to a stressor actually becomes lesser as you age.
In order to grip the masses, let's talk about stressors, because people watch health-based podcasts from the sake of lifestyle and health.
Yeah.
As in fitness. How can I improve my daily life in order to improve my organs?
Yeah.
So an obvious stressor is alcohol, and we'll get into details about alcohol. But before that, I want to ask you, what are the other stressors?
So the commonest stressor that we see in India is alcohol. The second commonest that is now still coming up is exactly what we discussed, that is lifestyle change related and metabolic diseases. So metabolic disease, there is something known as a metabolic syndrome. So metabolic syndrome has different components in it. So there is diabetes mellitus, that is your high sugar levels. You have hypertension, which is high blood pressure. You have dyslipidemia, which is high cholesterol and lipid triglycerides. You have hypothyroidism, which is a low functioning thyroid. You have high uric acid, which is hyperuricemia.
All of this is seeming like it's bad diet related.
Yeah, so it can be genetic also. It has a lot of familial. It can be within the families also, and it can be acquired also through sedentary life, lack of physical activity, obviously taking a lot of carb-rich foods or calorie-rich, calorie-dense foods. All of this can contribute to it. So it's never one of these stressors that is happening. It's maybe in people multiple stressors. So there is a guy who's drinking alcohol and who's obese. That guy has double stressors on the liver. So these are the common stressors from a metabolic health point of view. That is known as metabolic syndrome, which is why now the terminology called non-alcoholic fatty liver. So we have alcohol-related fatty liver and non-alcoholic fatty liver. That is NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The terminology is now changed to MASLD. That is metabolic dysfunction associated steatotic liver disease. So steatosis means fat in technical terms. So it's now MASLD. So that's how the name is changed, because metabolic health is a huge stressor for the liver.
I think this is a great point to actually grip the general audience. Let's talk about fatty liver. Why do they call it fatty liver? Is it just because the liver is getting damaged, or is there a layer of fat deposited on the liver? Why does the word fatty even come?
Yeah, so there are different causes for fat to get deposited inside the liver. So when I mean inside the liver, it's actually inside the liver cell. So the liver is made up of different types of cells. So this is also something very interesting, because there are no organs as complex as the liver. So I mean, if I ask somebody which is the most complex organ that you can think of, they'll say the brain, because brain is so complex, right? But brain has only 2 types of cells. That's it. 2 types of cells make up the whole brain. Look at the heart. 4 types of cells make up the whole heart. But look at the liver. 5 types of cells make up the liver, and those are primary types, and there are so many different types of it. And all in all, there are like 30 billion cells in the liver. 30 billion cells that make up 1.5 kilogram. So the liver is so complex, and the most common cell that you find in the liver is known as a hepatocyte, which is the liver cell, what we call as liver cell. Now, when you say fatty liver, it's basically lipids in droplet forms getting deposited inside the liver cell, around the nucleus within the cell. So that's a fatty liver. And when that happens, and more than about 5% of these liver cells are affected by this droplet deposition, then we call it as a fatty liver, because we see that on ultrasound. So when you do a simple scan, you can actually see the liver is grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 fatty. Those are patterns of deposition.
Patterns of damage?
Patterns of deposition of the fat.
But does that mean also damage?
No, it doesn't mean. So for us to call it damage, that lipid should cause inflammation within the liver cell. So that is known as fatty liver disease. So when you just see fatty liver on an ultrasound, that's just fatty liver. That is an ultrasound or radiological fatty liver. Now you look at the liver function test. Now if you see your liver function test, there are various parameters. There is total bilirubin. There is direct bilirubin. There is a component known as AST, ALT, which are liver enzymes. SGOT, SGPT. You can actually look at the liver function profile and see that. And GGT, alkaline phosphatase. These are all liver enzymes. Now, if these enzymes are high, especially the AST and ALT, that means there is some damage happening to the liver cell. So then we call it as fatty liver disease or steatohepatitis.
Okay. So the first stage is just deposition of fat around the nucleus.
Yeah.
And at some point, if you don't control your lifestyle, or if the disease you're going through goes out of hand, then that same deposited fat causes inflammation.
Exactly.
And then that inflammation is what is referred to as the disease part of it.
Now the inflammation does something else in between. Now this is the most important part, because just the inflammation is to some extent fine, easily reversible, but sometimes the inflammation actually damages the liver cell so that the liver cells actually die. And in their position, you get scars. So you have scarring where the liver cell was damaged. So that is known as fibrosis in technical term. So you can have steatohepatitis with fibrosis, which means not just the fat deposition or the inflammation, now your liver is getting scarred. And when that scarring goes beyond a particular point, so the scarring is considered as F0 where there is no scarring, that is no fibrosis, F1 which is an F2 which is early fibrosis, F3 which is advanced fibrosis, F4 which is what we call as cirrhosis. So that is that range of scarring is also important. So it goes above F2, that becomes significant scarring, and you have a high chance of developing cirrhosis. So this much is there to fatty liver.
Got it. Okay. So I think cirrhosis is one of the words that everyone commonly knows. And I'll be very raw and honest here with you. Usually people look at, say, neuroscience, neurology, or cardiac related stuff as the most common, and also probably put diabetes into that situation, into this conversation. People look at heart, brain, and diabetes as the most common medical problems. In my eyes, I believe India is going through a bit of a liver problem on a mass scale because of our dietary habits, because of alcohol consumption increasing in our country.
Right.
There's two questions for you. Firstly, from an India perspective, am I saying the right thing? And secondly, in your experience as a liver doctor, have you seen an increase in the number of cases? Because I remember, I don't know whether it was your tweet or I'd read this somewhere that there's a lot of people in their late 20s and early 30s also going through liver disease, which doesn't make sense to me. But then what I will say is, I'm a 30-year-old man. I've grown up with other guys my age. I'm seeing guys who are dealing with erectile dysfunction at my age, like legitimate erectile dysfunction. Guys who are dealing with hypertension, and all the guys who actually focused on their health, fitness, diet, they're all fine. But even our bodies are like, I'm a weight training, I'm a sports guy. I have injuries that I'm dealing with now. Yeah. So even after taking so much care of my health, at some point your body begins to respond with some kind of injuries. It's just the process of aging as a man. I'm sure even you went through that.
I understand. Yes.
Like, why do athletes retire?
Exactly.
But my point is, we don't have liver disease. So what's happening in India where such intense problems are happening? So is it correct to say that the number of patients you're getting is increasing?
So I think this question, I'm going to take it in two ways. One is basically the landscape of liver disease in India. You know, what at the moment what we are facing, and why is it so? So the commonest liver disease I still see in my outpatient is still alcohol-related liver disease, but it will be different in North India. It'll be hepatitis B related liver disease in North India, and in Punjab it might be hepatitis C. And it all depends on various environment and other risk factors that are prevalent in these areas. But if you look at any place, be it south, north, east or west in India, you can see there is one cause that is just climbing up and just shooting above everything, and it will become the commonest cause in the next decade, which is what we're speaking about is non-alcoholic fatty liver. Because of lifestyle diseases, because of metabolic diseases. So the landscape is now changing from alcohol, viral cause of liver disease to alcohol, and now it is non-alcoholic fatty liver that is more coming up in every parts of the country. And the reason why we are seeing this now is because one, we are detecting it early. So previously, there was this, if you look at 25, 30 years back, there was this group of liver disease known as cryptogenic or idiopathic. So people have shrunken livers or feature cirrhosis, and they did not know what this was due to.
Shrunken livers?
Yeah. So when in advanced stages of liver disease, in cirrhosis, the liver shrinks and becomes small.
Because the cells outside get
dead? No, because all the cells inside get dead and is replaced by scar tissue. So it becomes shrunken. So that is the end stage of liver disease. So a lot of patients, decades before, they did not know why that was happening. So they were not consuming alcohol. They were not having this viral hepatitis. No viral infections were there. So they used to call it as cryptogenic, which is mysterious. Crypto means mysterious. Idiopathic means unknown. That is what technically we use. And as the decades went by, now we understood that, lifestyle diseases and metabolic disease also can harm the liver. And all of those cryptogenic causes, idiopathic causes are now clubbed under non-alcoholic fatty liver. So the improvements in health, technology and diagnostics has actually helped us understand non-alcoholic fatty liver as an important cause for liver disease now, because of which it is now getting detected very early, even in younger group of people who have metabolic disease, who have some lifestyle changes that are unhealthy.
What would metabolic diseases include?
Exactly like we spoke about before: diabetes, obesity, a low thyroid function, which is hypothyroidism, high cholesterol and lipid profiles, high uric acid, presence of heart disease, lack of physical activity, sedentary life, overweight, all of this become part of metabolic disease.
And you'd say that all these are partially due to genetic factors and then partially due to lifestyle.
Exactly. So there are genetic factors, there are environmental factors, there are epigenetic factors. There are these factors that will affect you before you were born. While you're inside your mother's womb, there are factors that can affect you there, which can actually promote fatty liver disease or some liver disease in the future. So even such factors are all there. So it's not just one factor which is causing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, but many things that come together at that particular point.
But you said that, you're seeing an increase of this one thing, which is what we're talking about here. There has to be a reason that in 2024 or the 2020s, generally, this one thing is increasing.
Yeah.
So we got to see what changed, because effectively, I would assume that the genetics of Indians roughly would be the same now, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago.
Would be different, right? Would be different because now, it all depends on, imagine that there was this particular family who were getting married in that only particular community, in that particular region. Now they have moved to another place and they get married to people in another region where more of metabolic diseases are prevalent. So they have a higher risk of developing metabolic disease now, which it was not there before. So all of these things matter, right? So human migration, risk factors in the family, within the family, the environment that you are in. For example, a very interesting thing is there are certain occupations that promote fatty liver disease. For example, people who work in night shifts. So your normal biological clock is meant for you to sleep from this time to this time, right? So when night shifts come, they have a disrupted sleep cycle and they don't get the actual good sleep that they need to get. A lot of people get lower hours of sleep. Just that can promote fatty liver. So lack of sleep, poor quality of sleep, or a non-restorative sleep. You are sleeping, but you don't feel fresh in the morning, like you have not slept at all. Sometimes you feel that. I mean, we all feel that. So that non-restorative sleep also can promote fatty liver. It has nothing to do with your genetics or your environment or your family, nothing. So there are so many such factors now.
Yeah. I actually want to get into this genetics conversation a little bit, because there's a thing of dominant genes and submissive genes. And we had a genetic scientist on the show, Dr. Neeraj Rai. He spoke about basically how you shouldn't marry within the same community. And when you marry outside, it's just genetically a healthier thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's basic human biology.
That's something known as consensual marriages, where you marry your relatives, in the sense your first degree cousins or their second cousins and things like that. And liver diseases do come with that kind of.
I'm saying the opposite of that.
Yeah, if you do the exact opposite, it becomes better.
So that thing you said about migration, I would assume that if someone is in, say, Kerala, for example, then they move to Assam.
Yeah.
And if they marry an Assamese person, shouldn't it actually help with the liver function?
So it depends on who are you marrying. So if you are marrying somebody who has, imagine hepatitis B in the family, you are at a risk of developing hepatitis B.
Okay.
Or your children are at a risk of developing hepatitis B. But if you are marrying somebody who is healthier, without hepatitis B, without any other genetic diseases, it's fine.
Great.
It's fine. Yeah.
So say if they don't have hepatitis B, first of all, do that many people have hepatitis B?
Huge numbers. India is actually a huge region which has an epidemic of hepatitis B, and it's mostly in the north.
What is hepatitis? Let's get there and then open up this.
So when I say hepatitis, it just means inflammation of the liver. Simple.
Sure.
There is some swelling and damage happening in the liver. That's a general term. Hepatitis can be due to various causes. For example, alcohol can cause alcohol-related hepatitis. Or simple fatty liver, that is your metabolic fatty liver disease, can cause inflammation because of the fat.
What we were just talking about.
Non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. Viruses can cause hepatitis. That is, hepatitis viruses are many types. The common ones that we see are viral hepatitis A, viral hepatitis B, C, and E. That is what we see in our country. Viral hepatitis A and E are spread through contaminated and bad food and water, where viral hepatitis B and C, they are mostly spread through other routes. So hepatitis B and C requires blood-to-blood contact to spread. It doesn't spread through air or water or food. And that means that 4 major routes of spread. One is during blood transfusions. I mean, usually before the 1980s, when we did not know about these viruses, we used to have people who did not undergo screening for these viruses at that time, and they got transfused with infected blood and got hepatitis B later on in life, or hepatitis C. Now, there are others people who use injectable drugs, and this is very common in Punjab.
Heroin.
Yes, injectable drugs. And they share these needles, and that's how they get transmission of hepatitis B and C. Then people who have multiple sexual partners, they have a high risk of developing sexually transmitted disease like hepatitis B or C. And the fourth one is what is very important in India, and very importantly what I see, something known as perinatal spread. I'll just simplify it down, it's very interesting. So if somebody's parents, father or mother, has hepatitis B, but they don't know about it because all hepatitis B viral infections does not become a disease. The virus just stays in your body. It doesn't do anything. In some cases, it might promote liver damage, cause cirrhosis, liver cancer, whatever. But in many patients, many people, they are just inside, we don't know about it. So in such people, they transmit this virus to their children. So the mothers can transmit the virus to their children during childbirth, and fathers can transmit the virus to their children during the early years of life due to excessive, handling and kissing and all. So usually only the eldest son or daughter gets it, because fathers then get, the second son, third son, fathers are like, okay, fine. And this was actually identified in Indian studies, by the way. Fantastic studies. So this is known as horizontal spread, father to children, and from mother to children, it's known as vertical spread. So this is what we see commonly. That is why when we identify a person with hepatitis B viral infection, we screen the family. We screen the brothers and sisters, we screen the parents for us to confirm that even if they have it or not, if they have, should we treat them or not? Okay. So this is very interesting.
To curb this hepatitis epidemic, effectively, what I am seeing the solution as is education.
Of course. Awareness.
People just need to know, which is why it's important for people to hear this podcast. You know what challenge I'm facing? See, I'm talking to you right now. Yeah. Parallelly, I have to ensure that my podcast is interesting as a listen for people. It brings me back to that heart disease, brain and diabetes thing. Everyone listens about these things because those are common conversations in living room. No one talks about liver health.
I know.
Though it's important.
Yeah. So I'm going to just butt in here and say that I understand there is a lot on cardiac, heart health and gut health and brain health, but the real sexy organ is the liver. This is the organ that you should know about. I mean, no offense to cardiologists. It's just a pumping system. So if you have a block, you clean it. And if it stops pumping, you restart it. That's cardiology. I'm very sorry, no offense to cardiologists. But when it comes to the liver, it's so much more complex because it handles so many complex things. For example, from your immune system, fighting infections, from digesting and metabolizing every nutrient aspect that your body requires, to hormonal balance, to protecting, like you said, from outside invasion from your intestines, because our intestines are always full of bacteria, viruses, and fungi. All of this, and maintaining brain, heart, lung, and all that health, the liver is at the centermost position. So it's the core organ which actually connects to everything. That is why we have a gut-brain axis because of the liver. We have a gut-heart axis because of the liver. All of this because of the liver.
It's like the center back of the body in football terms.
Yes. So we have a master organ, which is actually something known as a pituitary gland in the brain. But that is a master gland. But the master organ, I would say, is definitely the liver.
Okay. So many tangents have to go on, but let's go back to what we were talking about, that increase you spoke about in India.
Yeah.
So my argument was that it has to be lifestyle. And then you said, no, it's also this hepatitis stuff. And that is happening because of a lack of awareness and education.
Yes.
So Perhaps if every Indian understands, hey, go and eat clean food. Hey, don't have multiple sexual partners. Hey, don't drink too much alcohol. You will curb that hepatitis epidemic to a large degree.
Yes, to some extent, of course, because some of these are preventable. For example, hepatitis B, you take a vaccine, you won't get it.
Everyone doesn't take the vaccine?
No, I don't think everybody takes the vaccine, even though it's under the national guidelines policy. Children do get it when they are, at birth. But then a lot of them are unaware of it and they don't actually check for antibodies and then do a booster and all later on in life. And this is very important.
What percentage of India do you think has taken it? If you are to just do guesswork.
I mean, if you go by the national guidelines, it should be 100%. But I'm not sure. I'm just going to guess here. Maybe 40, 45%.
So that remaining 55 is sitting in small town India?
Possibly, yes. Without access to actual medical care and access to actual vaccination programs.
Would you argue also without access to information?
Of course. Because if they're aware, they would definitely do it. Because this is a preventable cause of liver disease. And I would say that there are two liver diseases which you can definitely prevent. And one is alcohol-related liver disease and one is hepatitis B. Because alcohol, don't take alcohol, you're fine. Hepatitis B, take a vaccine, you're protected.
You think eating street food plays a role?
I would say eating street food from unhygienic and poor sanitized places plays a role in spread of hepatitis A and E, but not the other ones.
Sure.
People can enjoy street food. No problems there. But if they are going to go into a place where it's poor hygiene and sanitation, there is a high risk of developing hepatitis A and D, which, by the way, are self-limiting causes for hepatitis. For example, they'll come. You get it. You have jaundice and you have high bilirubin levels and all that. And then within few weeks' time, it will go away. So you don't actually need to treat it. You just have to give supportive care and then prevent going to such places. And hepatitis A, by the way, is endemic in Kerala. So every rainy season, we have a lot of cases coming in because people go and eat bad street food, unhygienic street food, and they get hepatitis A, which is why there is a travel advisory. If somebody is coming from outside to Kerala during the rainy season, please take a hepatitis A vaccination about 2 weeks before coming. So it protects you if you want to eat good street food.
How does the human eye that is not educated even spot good versus bad street food? Because everyone loves street food. So I'll tell you the rudimentary input I've gotten from doctor friends is ideally try avoiding cold things and try avoiding things that are liquid based, which means we got to say goodbye to pani puri.
I would say that's good advice because liquid formulations is what actually spreads these things because it's water contamination mostly.
So chutney.
Yeah.
And?
Yeah. Like pani puri, chutneys, especially this sharbat. You have these sharbat drinks that you get on the roadsides. They all spread hepatitis. I get a lot of young teenagers who come and get treated under me with hepatitis A during rainy season because they go for a college trip to some place and they take these sharbats and all these fizzy drinks that are made on the roadside shops and they get infected with hepatitis A and come.
Goti soda. Damn.
You can see, where they're using the water from and how hygienic they are, the surroundings and all that. And be aware of that and then enjoy your street food.
Let's go one layer deep in this goti soda and sharbat thing.
Yeah.
How is the sharbat and goti soda actually getting contaminated?
So it's from the water source that they use. So if they are not using good water source, so for example, they might just be using the street pipe water to fill and use the sodas and all that.
Really?
Yeah.
Street pipe water?
Yeah. So I have seen these stalls where they have a small tap on the side, which is directly connected to some pipeline. And they'll be just filling that up and then, putting it in the water. Or it might be, they'll be taking that and then putting ice in it and keeping it on the side. Right. And then be using that. Right. So those things actually, it has a very high level of infection rate, especially during these rainy seasons where there is something also known as leptospirosis, which is known as a rat fever in Kerala, where it comes specifically during rains. And it's because of contaminated water, because of rat urine. The rats come out from the fields and it contaminates the water sources. And when they use such water sources, people get infected and it also presents with jaundice. So that is another cause of hepatitis. Leptospirosis, it's very commonly seen in Kerala. And we call it as triple R. It's not the movie. It's rats, rains and rice fields. So these are the 3 risk factors that promotes this infection.
Rice fields?
Yeah. So basically where there are rice fields, there will be a lot of rats around. And when it rains, these rats come out and then pollute the waters. So 3 risk factors for this leptospirosis, which is known as Weil's disease in clinical terms, is RRR. And that's also one cause for jaundice that we see in Kerala because of poor hygiene.
Have you read Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari?
Yes, I have.
He draws out this picture of the time when human beings, as biologically evolved as us, were hunter-gatherers.
Yes.
And how that was a much more beautiful life if you really think about it.
Okay.
There was less pressure of social media.
I understand. Yeah, there was no industrialization. Yeah. I think that's the whole stress of it.
His argument is that lifespans were shorter, but probably that quality of life was much better because it was a cleaner life. There were lesser human beings polluting the world.
Yeah. So there is something I might add here. So if you look at in 1800s or 1600s, our lifespan or life expectancy was somewhere around maybe 25 to 30 years. That's it. And before that,
what year is this?
1600s to 1700s. Our life expectancy was somewhere around 30 years of age. And a lot of that time, there were a lot of diseases which we never knew about. So diabetes is one of that. So many kids with type 1 diabetes, which is insulin-dependent diabetes, they used to die at a very young age because of complications of diabetes at a very young age, just after infections. But then we had insulin, the Banting and Best discovered insulin. And when we started insulin therapy for people with diabetes, we saw these kids growing up and developing complications of diabetes in the old age. So something that we saw acutely, all the problems of that disease in a younger stage, we are now seeing all of that in a later stage. So exactly what we are discussing here. I mean, at that time of hunter-gatherers, I mean, they had shorter lives, but they had more diseases that killed them faster. Now we have diseases which kill us slower, but helps us live longer. It's I think it's a bargain that we made with science. Yeah. Science has improved our life expectancy, but in the process, we are seeing a lot more complications related to what actual diseases bring to us in the long term, which was not possible before.
Very interesting conversation. Yeah. Earlier it was survival of the fittest. Now it's survival of the fittest and cleanest.
To some extent, yeah. So I think this vaccination, which we were talking about now, it has become very important. Because did you come across this news in the US and I think in the UK where now children are getting diagnosed with measles and they are getting measles-related deaths now because of that anti-vaccine movement that is going on in the West.
As in they're not even taking measles vaccines as a part of the anti-vaccine movement.
Exactly. So it started off with the COVID vaccine and now it is spilled over into the other vaccines where these vaccines prevented childhood death. Measles, mumps, that is rubella, diphtheria, tetanus and all of these. So these old world diseases are now making a comeback. So we are back to the hunter-gatherer stage maybe in the next 10 or 20 years because if they don't vaccinate and especially kids with these childhood diseases we can prevent, we're going to see a lot of these old world diseases come back to us.
What is the origin point of this thought of saying no to vaccines?
Oh, that started off with the smallpox era. So at the time, so basically it's something to do with going against the authority. So your government or some authority is saying, take it. So there are a group of people, why should we listen to you? We don't want to take it. So any amount of information, logic or reasoning that you give that particular group, they will not accept it because they're just looking at doing things against the authority because they feel stronger that way. So the
one layer deep, why?
I think it's just, so this is something more important. It's known as the Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity, right? So the more people are misinformed or the more they are illiterate from a healthcare point of view, the more they are, the more likely they are going to fall for conspiracy theories. So I'm going to say that, there is this new vaccine for smallpox. I mean, I'm talking about the smallpox era. So we discovered the new vaccine and now this prevents smallpox. So everybody take it. So some group will say that, this is actually some company has made this and government is getting a cut out of it. And that is why they are giving this vaccine. That's conspiracy theory. And now this will reflect and do well in groups where there is low health literacy, who will believe anything and everything because they have maybe poor education. They are not literate enough to understand consequences of these actions and they will just swallow this whole. Right. And there are these groups and these groups will again become bigger and bigger because if you ask me, the theory also says that a small group of stupid people is much threatening than a single evil person. If you have a very evil person, take maybe Hitler, for example, a small group of stupid people is more damaging than that guy. And because there was a lot of stupid people around evil people were able to do evil things.
Oh, damn.
Right. So this is the whole anti-vaccine movement. So there is this evil guy who has conspiracy theories in the head. And there are a lot of stupid people who will believe him. This keeps going on and becomes a movement.
Yeah. I think the thing with conspiracy theories is that the human mind grasps it very fast because it's stories.
Exactly.
One layer deeper than what we're talking about is human psychology, probably. That
Exactly.
you're able to grasp stories much more than you're able to grasp data and facts.
Exactly.
And it's easier, which is why the process of education is important.
It's very important. And it's not just education, because I see a lot of educated, stupid people. Education does not mean intelligence, actually. And I think it's all to do with critical thinking. So you have a problem in front of you, or I give you a problem in front of you. You must be able to analyze that problem in different angles and come to a conclusion which is most logical. For example, I'm going to say that, hepatitis B vaccination prevents hepatitis B infection. So you can ask me, how many of people will develop side effect against this vaccine? So I'm going to say, maybe 100,000 people take the vaccine. One person could develop a side effect. So you'll ask me, is that side effect going to be life-threatening? So I'll say, maybe it's life-threatening, maybe it's self-limited side effect. Then you'll say, what if I develop that side effect? You see how the way the thinking is going. So it's going into a negative conclusion already. So that person has decided that hepatitis B vaccination may harm him. But the truth is, it will protect him more than harming him. So the critical thinking will allow us to balance these two factors. So what is benefit-risk ratio? So something is more beneficial and less risky rather than more risky and less beneficial. Your mind should automatically conclude that something that is more beneficial and less risky is good for you.
I want to talk about that one evil guy.
Yeah.
When it comes to anti-vaxxing as a concept,
right?
Have you ever thought about where it originated? Because there's another conspiracy theory attached to this.
Okay.
Which says that if more people fall ill, the pharma industry makes more money.
See, this is in a way, if you look at how medical science has evolved and why we have vaccines now, why we have a lot of these drugs now, which prevents diseases like tuberculosis. We can cure tuberculosis now when it was killing millions centuries ago. It's because of the pharma industry. Pharma industry, we can look at it two ways. You can look at it a glass half empty, or you can look at it a glass half full. And people who love conspiracy theories will always look at it half empty. Your Rockefeller comes in, your Soros comes in. Everybody comes in. And even simple doctors like me come into that picture. We are all big pharma agents and working for it. I don't get a single penny from them. And what this has happened is that, we need the pharmaceutical industry because we want to produce medicines that are going to save lives. And we want them to do research and produce new molecules that will save more lives in the future. So just looking at pharma as a bad thing is, I think it's not righteous to do that. It's an inaccurate way to look at pharma because they're doing more good than that little conspiracy bad that you are thinking that they're doing. There are bad pharmaceutical practices. I'm 100%, I'm not denying it. There was one where Ranbaxy, and I think you might have heard of this book called Bottle of Lies, written by Catherine Iban. And she actually showed that this person whom I'm very good friends with him. He's also a follower and friend on Twitter. Dinesh Thakur. He actually called out Ranbaxy for doing unethical trials in Africa, where they actually gave children and adults tablets which did not contain the drug, but something like a chalk powder or something like that. It did not contain the drug. And then they made money out of it. So he was a whistleblower and he took them to court. And they took him to court actually, saying defamation suit and all, but he won. And Ranbaxy just collapsed after that. So there are bad ethical practices in the pharma industry, 100%. Bad ethical practices among doctors, 100%. But that does not mean the medical science is bad. Medical science is good.
It brings me to that Avenger conversation we had at the start, that we need more doctors on social media.
Yes.
Because when the average person gets to know you guys as human beings, it'll sort out a lot. I think what I read as the fear of doctors is again, exactly what we were talking about, conspiracy theories and the theory of negative biases. That one small bad person will actually, paint the picture for the whole industry. But I think human beings generally need to understand more nuance, which is what I enjoy about my job, which I've understood is kind of the purpose of podcasting. That we can have very long, stretched out, nuanced conversation rather than like...
I mean, just putting it out there in a point. I mean, there is so many things around it. I mean, I don't know if this is the time to talk about it, but like you said, there is one small thing that can actually impact everything in a bad way. Instead of looking at it wholesomely and understanding that it is actually not so bad, it's actually pretty good. I think it is about transplantation, liver transplantation. There is something that I would like to talk here from a personal point of view also, because I have been in the eye of the storm on social media on this. I mean, something that our country lacks is a good transplant system. I'm talking about just purely from the liver transplantation point of view. We don't have a centralized system for liver transplantation.
You'll have to give some context here. You mean there needs to be a body where some people can come and donate livers after death?
Yeah. So in the US, let me take the example of United States. So they have something known as the UNOS, that is the United Network for Organ Sharing. So and they have a lot of deceased donors. So we have two ways to get the organ for patients who require the liver, who are in end-stage liver disease. One is something known as donation after brain death. So the person is alive, but he is brain dead, which means he's not going to wake up anytime. So they donate voluntarily the organ to a person who requires it.
What if the person wakes up and you...
No, that is why we have brain death certification rules. So there are rules, there are clinical guidelines set up to ensure that that person is brain dead. And after that, and it's a step-by-step process which takes many, many hours to do that.
But they can survive without a liver?
No, the brain dead patient means he's dead. He's considered dead. He's not clinically dead, he's brain dead, but then he'll die at some point anyways. So before that, we use him to give life to others. That is the whole point of voluntary organ donation. And that's actually how humanity or humanism works in transplantation medicine. So that is one way to give the organ. The second way is something known as living donation. So for example, I'm not getting a brain dead donor on time and the patient is going to die very soon. So a family member decides to donate a part of the liver. So that is known as living donation. So a part of the liver, whatever amount of liver that is required for the patient to function quickly, because the liver will grow, like we said before, it will grow very fast within 4 to 6 weeks. We give that part of the liver to that person and he will survive. So this is known as living donation and it comes from the relatives.
As in the relatives and the patient's liver will both grow because of that one healthy liver?
Yeah, so the patient's liver will fully come out because that's a bad liver. The whole liver will come out and the part of this, the relative's liver will go in.
And both will grow?
Yes, both will grow because it's a healthy liver. It will grow very fast and both the patient and the donor will be fine. So that is living donation, which is what is happening mostly in India. In the US, they have more of disease donation. So you have this organ sharing network where they have all these people who have pledged their organ donations or voluntarily donated the liver. They'll all come into that. And then they'll match that with whoever the recipient is at various parts of the country, whoever requires it faster, whoever can wait a little bit. So they will transfer this organ accordingly to that person.
Uber for organs.
Yeah, I mean, Uber we can just call. Usually here you have to wait.
A kidney bhajwa do.
Yeah, so it's like a good system that works. Depending on who needs it first. So it's very well settled there. In India, we don't have such a system. So if you go to Delhi or if you go to Kerala, they'll have their own organ sharing network, which is for that region. So for example, if I have a liver if a patient is brain dead in Kerala, that brain dead patient's liver cannot be used in Tamil Nadu or in Karnataka because it's not centralized. You can use it only in here. But there might be people who might be requiring that organ much more there than here. So that kind of a system is not available here. So we have these two. So most of these is from living donation that we have in India. Now, because of this, and there are cost differences. So you're getting a whole liver from a brain dead patient versus you're getting part of the liver from a living person. The surgery is more complex in the living. Because it's a healthy person, you have to make sure that the person will be okay after the surgery, and it's 2 surgeries at a time. And here it's just 1 surgery because already the person is brain dead, and you're just getting the liver and putting in So there are cost differences also. In India, because of this, there is a lot of patients on the wait list who are actually dying without getting a liver on time.
How long is the wait list?
I mean, I have patients who waited on the list for 2 years and died in front of me in my ICU when we could not offer them a liver and they did not have a matching donor in the family. And they tried their level best to get a matching donor, but we could not. I mean, this is not one story. I mean, I have hundreds of patients like that.
Is this the biggest problem that transplantation medicine is facing in India?
This is the core problem, but there is a bigger problem. What happens is that, Kerala was one of the states where we had maximum numbers of brain death sharing. It was as good as Spain till 2017, 2018. And what happened was that in 2017, 2018, if I am right, a movie released in Kerala, a Malayalam movie by the name Joseph. I'm not sure you've heard of it. That movie actually showed people were actually getting killed and their organs were given to hospitals as part of a racket.
Kidney kidnapping.
Kidney and liver, whatever. It's like a huge racket going on like that. It was a fictional story, but people took it to heart. And the organ sharing just suddenly collapsed in Kerala after that movie came out because everyone thought all the hospitals doing transplantation is doing it for the money, killing people. And people thought that people on the brain dead proclamation list were actually not brain dead, but doctors are making them brain dead and taking their organs. This conspiracy just flew so much out of control that my father is a very senior gastroenterologist. He is one of the first gastroenterologists in India only. He's done he's a Padma Shri Award winner also in 2010. His name is Philip Augustine. Yeah, his name is Dr. Philip Augustine. So him, me, all of us were actually sucked into this conspiracy, and this happened also recently.
Really?
Yeah, where my father started the first living donation transplant program in Kerala, in Lakeshore Hospital. And we had very good program there. And somebody, a conspiracy theorist, who's also a doctor, by the way, a proper MBBS doctor, he said that, this hospital is actually killing young men and collecting their organs.
Out of jealousy?
I have no idea. Or maybe out of that 15 minutes of fame that he wanted. Or maybe he is doing that for money. Because people do that to hospitals and hospitals don't want their name to come out in the open. So they'll just give him settlement money. Don't go for this case. Just take this money and be on the side. People do that. But we did not, because we never did that. And I was not part of that hospital at the time. I was doing my, training and my studies in Calcutta and Delhi. But when this happened in 2009, this just blew out of proportion. And we had this huge conspiracy theory going in Kerala that, this hospital and other hospitals are actually collecting patients, killing patients and taking their organs out. That has actually impacted the transplantation program even now. Why I'm saying this out here in the open on your podcast is that when somebody makes that conspiracy theory, and by the way, that theory has never been proven even now. The guy he started cases in 2009, now it's 2024. No doctors were arrested, no doctors are charge sheeted. It went to the magistrate court, it was taken out from there. It went to the National Tribunal Commission for Organ Transplantation, was taken out from there. Then he sent a private complaint again in 2019 to another local court there, which the court ordered again, let us look at it again. And then the whole thing blew out of proportion again. And this keeps happening, and now it is all settled again because nobody could prove anything. This particular case. But these things keep coming and coming. And in social media, people keep talking about it again, taking my name, my dad's name, taking the name of organ transplantation in the name of killing people and all that. Please don't do that. Because when there is a dearth of organ donation voluntarily from people, there are people on the list dying. We should consider that also. So this is one bigger problem that we are facing now. This whole conspiracy theory in organ transplantation, like we have anti-vaccination in the West, it's spreading throughout India, and we are getting lesser and lesser brain dead donations. And because of that, young people are dying on the list.
Were you guys attacked because of this?
Attacked in different ways, not physically, but the whole social media disinformation campaign was quite bad. My dad is 76 years old. He has done everything, spent his whole life giving back to people. And to face this now at this age, it's quite sad to see that. And we fought it tooth and nail. Our lawyers are good. And now these guys are on the back foot because we have evidence to show that everything was done as per rules and guidelines and nobody was killed for any organ. But these stories will keep happening again and again, maybe about 5 years later, 6 years later. But people should understand that this is where the critical thinking comes. These are stories, never proven. And organ transplantation saves lives. It does. Imagine a patient of mine who was an alcohol use disorder patient with severe liver disease, decides to quit alcohol, become good, wanted to care for his family now, wanted a new life, but also needs the liver to do that. So he is fully abstaining. He's changed his ways, he's changed his life, and he's waiting for a liver, and he does not get that liver, and he dies after 2 years with young children and a wife, leaving a young children and a wife. I mean, the hurt that I go through, the hurt that family goes through, because this conspiracy theory has been moving around, and we are not getting livers on time, it's just so damaging.
Okay. Sorry, you had to go through this, honestly.
I mean, I think it's important because only with confusion we can get clarity. Very interestingly, so I mean, do you know how the organ donation works in India? So it's an exclusive program. For example, if you pledge your organs to that particular society, only then they will consider you as an organ donor. Otherwise, you will just go, whatever brain dead or after death, you'll just go 6 feet under or get cremated. I mean, whatever is the tradition. And then that body is gone, right? So if you are part of that donation list, you want to pledge your organs only, that organs can be used. But look at France. France is so beautiful. They have a small legal or a law which says that everybody is considered as an organ donor until they refuse.
Wow.
Yeah, so they have an exclusion list. So you have to go on the list and say that I refuse to give my organs to other human beings. And then they will not take your organs. Otherwise, everybody is an organ donor by law, which is why you get very high rates of organ transplantation in France, very high rates of advanced liver disease patients surviving for longer duration in France. It's fantastic. So such a system we need to promote, better healthcare or better lives for patients who are on advanced liver disease listing in India. Let me switch to another country from this point of view, China. So if you look at all the liver transplantation research, clinical research, you'll actually see very, very less research being published from China. So you have very big journals where we publish our liver research findings and all that. And we have journals for liver transplantation also in US and Europe and all. But you will see very small numbers of publications from China. You know why? Because the Chinese has a different idea. What they do is they kill people on the death list and use the organs for the patients.
Kill people on the death list, as in?
So there are these prisoners who have been serving life or on the death list. So what they do is they make them brain dead and then they use those organs for...
They make them brain dead?
Yeah.
How do you make someone brain dead?
I mean, it's easy to do that. I mean, you give a set of injections and you do certain procedures, you can make a person brain dead. And then they harvest organs and give.
Lobotomy, I think it's called.
Yeah. I mean, lobotomy is one part of it, but this, I mean, they won't be conscious. They won't be conscious, but they'll be conscious, but not alert and, like that. So Chinese do that, which is why you don't get many publications from China in liver transplantation journals. And there are many articles retracted. After publication, many articles were actually retracted and removed from these journals because they found out that the transplantation that was done in those particular articles were actually from killed prisoners.
Because worldwide,
in retrospect,
people would consider this murder.
It's murder.
It is murder.
It is murder. It is murder. Yeah. So that is what is happening in the China part of it.
So such a gray zone this is, because those guys are evil. That's why they're in prison. But there's a whole argument about false accusation. I don't get in there, but...
but it's not easy to discuss that topic at all because they have their reasons. We have our reasons because we are all humans. We are not supposed to kill somebody to save somebody. And ultimately, it's a gray area. I don't know how the transplant community also looks at it because China is China. And so they don't publish such cases and articles from them based on this kind of thing in transplantation. So that also happens on the side. So that is why we need a good a very good program that is governed by a proper body, a regulatory authority, which can ethically and morally consider organ transplantation for people in India, which is lacking here.
I was going to ask you about what the possible solution here is. The possible solution here is policy.
Yeah.
So my angle is, why can't, and tell me the honest input here, Why can't doctors all over the country get together, go to the health ministry and say, listen, this is what we need next? What's the friction there? Like,
this is a very important question. You know what? Because our public health infrastructure and services are not up to the mark to provide organ transplantation across the board in the country.
as in, even if the government agrees and policies are made, the infrastructure, the hospitals, the number of doctors in the hospitals are not up to the mark.
Yes. I mean, public sector. So if you look at the transplant programs in India, it's all shouldered by the private sector. So the maximum number of organ transplantation that is happening in Kerala is probably in major 3 hospitals. That is, one is Amrita Hospital, one is Aster Hospital, fantastic programs, and one is our place, Rajagiri Hospital. So 3 institutes in Kochi area takes a lot of burden of liver transplantation. Kochi also has a medical college, a government medical college, but they don't even have a hepatology department there. They don't have a gastroenterology department there. They have absolutely no organ donation facilities or organ transplantation facilities there. So if it has to be a program that is governed by the government body, it means that it has to be an equitable and a affordable program where the financial burden on the person or the patient and the family becomes much lesser. In the private sector, that does not happen because you have to pay.
So you're approaching this from 2 angles. One, anything you're saying about transplantation medicine is actually from a mass perspective. We're talking about the masses of India where their bodies are the same as ours, so they'll go through the same problems.
Yeah.
But the second angle here is that we just don't have enough hospitals. And
we have enough hospitals, but we don't have enough of infrastructure and state-of-the-art facilities to promote this on a public health scale. See, it's easy to say that, this person individually, somebody can afford a transplant, they will get a transplant. But there is somebody who needs a transplant but cannot afford it. So he has to be in the public health system where he'll get an organ and he can survive. So everybody has a right to health. Everybody has a right to live.
I'm trying to see this from a very business point of view to solve the problem that our country is facing when it comes to medical healthcare, at least from a providing doctor's perspective. I hope that this conversation leads to some kind of change.
I hope so.
Because actually it's not seeming like there is a out and out solution. You have to go into each hospital, redo the way those programs are done.
I mean, there are inspections and a lot of things done, but everybody can get a certificate anytime in this country, in any place. I mean, people have to nurture that thought that, this is the righteous thing to do by this group of people. I mean, they are students and they need to learn also apart from doing work. And I don't know how we can do that across the board.
You become better at your job as a medico when you are practicing, right?
Practicing and also teaching.
Because that's the final step of learning.
Yeah. So a doctor, ideally from the Greek, it means teacher first. It does not mean healer or a physician. It means teacher. So doctor has to be first a teacher to the patients and a teacher to other juniors, other doctors. And then comes your practice. So when you practice, you gain experience. And experience may not always be the right thing to guide you. See, I understand that there is a doctor who's maybe 50 years of experience and all that, but he'll still treat fatty liver disease wrongly.
Really?
Yeah, because I get a lot of such cases in my referral unit. So I get a lot of patients who have been treated by very senior gastroenterologists and very senior physicians the wrong way, with just multiple prescriptions for a simple disease which actually required only lifestyle change. So my main job actually in my OPD most of the time is something known as deep prescription. So they'll have 20 tablets. They'll be taking medicines for breakfast, lunch and dinner.
It's all for the liver.
Almost all for the liver. Some for the uric acid, some for the diabetes. So it's too much. So this is not as polypharmacy where you just, carpet bomb patients with medicines and something will work out. So what I do is I deprescribe all of that and make it into either 1 or 2 medications. And patients are so happy because 1, they understand that their disease is not that bad and they can get a control on it. That actually satisfies the patients. It gives them motivation. And 2, financial burden comes down, which is a big thing and a big deal for our patients in this country. And just because a doctor has got a huge practice and is actually seeing patients for about 10 or 25 years, that does not mean that doctor is actually a good doctor. No, he might be a good person, but when it comes to clinical practice, he might be flawed. So this is my whole idea of talking about what an experienced doctor is versus what a doctor who is actually educationalist.
Yeah.
So when they actually teach, they're updated and they know exactly what is the right thing to do by their patient.
I think one of the bottom lines I've learned for the non-medico population, which is everyone minus doctors, is that always look for a doctor who's constantly getting updated with what's happening.
Yes. I would definitely choose an academic clinician rather than just a high practicing clinician.
How does an average person know ki, okay, this doctor's an academic clinician?
It's difficult because, I mean, now I think it's a little more easier because we have we have information at the fingertips. So if you just go and look at the doctor's profile, most of these institutes or most of the hospitals now have a section called as publications and research and expertise. So you check on that. So a well-published doctor with good expertise in a particular area will have a lot of publications and a lot of credentials under that particular area of expertise.
You're publishing research based on your field of work.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So for example, if you're a liver doctor, you're constantly studying about different diseases, constantly studying about different solutions,
right.
Clinically testing it, then publishing those papers.
Exactly.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I'll make a small statement here about allopathy.
Sure.
Right. So we equate the term allopathy to modern medicine.
Sure.
Right. All the time. I mean, even our media do it. And it's very inherent to India, where people call modern medicine as allopathy. But I think everybody should know that allopathy is not modern medicine, because allopathy was a term coined by the person who invented homeopathy. So homeopathy is basically German invention. It's a German physician. His name is Samuel Hahnemann. He invented homeopathy because during the early century, 1800s and all, there were no actual treatments for diseases. And so it was a time when the light bulb was not invented, early 1800s. So at that time, if somebody had a headache, people used to drill a hole in the skull to reduce the headache. People used to bring the blood out, that is known as bloodletting, to reduce the headache. Or if people have some infection and all. They never knew that the germ theory, the infectious causes for disease also was not known at that time. So there was crude forms of treatment which were actually very painful and torturous for the patient. So this guy, Samuel Hahnemann, felt very bad about it. So he invented a system of medicine which was very gentle. So in the process, what he did was to give very diluted forms of medications which actually contains nothing, ultimately, which has very diluted forms to treat a lot of diseases. That is what homeopathy is. So to differentiate homeopathy from that crude form of treatment that was actually given at that time, he called it as allopathy. So allopathy was an ancient heroic type of crude medicine that was practiced in the early 800s. It has nothing to do with modern medicine. So when people say allopathy, I always correct them and say it's not allopathy, because allopathy is now obsolete. Because after the invention and after we have now scientific medicine coming up, that term is now buried.
What would you substitute that term with?
I would call it as just medicine, because medicine is medicine, and then you have alternative medicine. So if alternative medicine is found to be useful, it becomes medicine. Yeah. Some people also call it as science-based medicine, which is SBM. Another group calls it as evidence-based medicine, which is EBM. But I would just say it as medicine.
Okay. I'll tell you what I am trying to attempt through this conversation is, one, to understand your strong stance on Ayurveda and homeopathy, and two, to improve my own understanding of all these things without completely discounting any of the three.
Yeah. So, I would like to take this as an opportunity to say that, I'm not here to convince everybody about right or wrong, but what I'm going to give here or talk about here is plain, simple, rational and logical approach to healthcare. Simple. So the first is, let me give you an example. Imagine if I have a patient comes to me with jaundice. So jaundice is not the disease. It is actually a symptom associated with a disease. So jaundice can be because of a liver disease. It can also be because of a blood disorder, a blood disease. So jaundice is a symptom. The patient feels it. Patient can see that the eyes are yellow and the urine is yellow. That is jaundice. And even the doctors can see that the eyes are yellow. So it becomes a symptom and a sign, which doctors can also see. It's jaundice. Now, when I approach that jaundice patient, what will I do? I'll work him up for the causes of jaundice. So I'll first look at hepatitis virus is causing jaundice. I'll see if the patient is having significant amount of alcohol use. I'll see if this patient is on any specific drugs which can cause jaundice, because there are drugs that can harm the liver. So I'll look at all of these, and ultimately I'll figure out, yes, the jaundice is because of this disease. Imagine it is hepatitis B. The jaundice is because of that. So I give him a medicine for hepatitis B, and the jaundice is gone. So he gets cured from the jaundice because he got cured from the hepatitis B. So the medicine is an antiviral, which is a drug that acts against hepatitis B, and then he's fine. Now imagine the same person going to a Ayurveda. Ayurveda has no concept of root cause. Even though we keep hearing root cause in alternative medicine practice, they have no concept. They have a concept of treating symptoms only, but not diseases. So jaundice in Ayurveda is just jaundice. They'll come with jaundice, and they have these ancient texts, which was written ages ago by these sages at the time, based on observation and faith and belief, but not tested, not validated, not experimented on, without any other replication. That means, for some treatment to be useful, to be recommended or approved,
a large number of people
has to be tested, and it has to be from different groups. So I make a drug and I say that this drug is good for this. Doesn't make sense, because another group also has to say it. So otherwise it becomes a bias from my side. So it's my drug, so I say it's good, but that is known as validation and replicability. So this is all part of scientific medicine. In Ayurveda, it's not there. So it is not validated, not tested. You cannot falsify it, in the sense that you cannot change it, because it's already fixed in the textbook that in this case you have to give this only. Right. So the different causes for jaundice. So if somebody comes with hepatitis B, or somebody comes with hepatitis A jaundice, or somebody comes with alcohol hepatitis jaundice, Ayurveda treats them all same, which is actually not right by the patient, because patient deserves to be treated for the disease that is causing the jaundice. So which is why I say that Ayurveda is a pseudoscience, in the sense that...
Do you think all of it is a pseudoscience?
Of course, because the principles are all the same. It's based on Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and it's based on the elemental theory of disease formation. And if you ask an Ayurveda what a Vata is, what a Kapha is, how do you measure it? Please show it to me. They can't. They'll go philosophical. So it's a philosophy of treatment in Ayurveda and all that. There's a lot of philosophy, a lot of belief and faith and all attached to it. So which is why I say that for realistic healthcare, these are not good options for people to go for. Now, you'll hear stories that, Ayurveda has actually improved certain conditions. So this skin disease is there, it's gone. Or this asthma was there, it's gone. This jaundice is there, it's gone because of Ayurveda. I mean, you do hear it. I mean, I get a lot of such responses also. So that is where the natural history of disease comes in. So every disease. So like, for example, we are all born one day. We have this life expectancy and we die. This is how life goes. Same with the disease. So there are diseases which start, which keeps going very long. Those are chronic diseases. And there are diseases which start and they take a course and then they automatically come down after a few years or few weeks or few months, whatever. Take the example of childhood asthma, like we spoke in the beginning. I was an asthmatic child. I used to take a lot of inhalers and I used to be admitted for asthma attacks and all. I used to take a lot of medicines, including steroids as need be during my childhood. But by the time I was 12 years, 13 years, my asthma is gone. Because childhood asthma, majority of childhood asthma will go away at a certain age. There are other forms of asthma which can come later in adulthood. For that, it's a different treatment. So somebody will start asthma medications at the age of 5 years. Imagine. Modern medicine. So they're taking this, but asthma attacks keep coming in between. Now it's for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years of age, they have tried modern medicine. 6 years, they have tried modern medicine. Now they are not happy. So they say, okay, let's try Ayurveda. So they try Ayurveda in between this also. So now they go for Ayurvedic treatment and they do it for 2 years. So now already the child is 10 years of age. So in 2 years, they try Ayurveda. And by the time the child is 12 years of age, the asthma is already gone because it is supposed to go away at that time. Because that is the natural history of childhood asthma. But what would the parents feel? The parents will feel that, okay, we started Ayurveda now. So Ayurveda has cured the disease. Because it was started the last. So they feel that it's a bias. This was started, so it has gone. But in reality, The asthma is supposed to go away at the age of 12 and it has gone on its own, and Ayurveda has nothing to do with it. So this is why we have to define anecdotal experiences from scientific evidence.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So this is my take on Ayurveda versus scientific evidence, and the same with homeopathy. Homeopathy has a different set of principles altogether, which are absurd. It is made by Samuel Hahnemann only, where he claims that something that can cause a disease, in very dilute forms, it can cure the disease, which is impossible. So basically, if I have alcohol liver disease,
snake venom theory.
Yeah, so that is anti-venom. You're giving anti-venom against the snake venom. But this is not like that. So imagine I have alcohol liver disease. So if I give myself diluted forms of alcohol, I can cure the alcohol liver disease. I mean, it doesn't work that way. You know, something that causes a disease cannot cure the disease. So there are separate set of principles similar to what in Ayurveda, because it cannot be tested and it cannot be experimented because the principles themselves are very weak and illogical.
Okay. I have no perspective on homeopathy, never been through it, never even spoken to anyone who has practiced homeopathy. So I have no perspective. I have some perspective on Ayurveda through the show and through, even like lifestyle coaches and all who've been on the show. In my eyes, I don't. So first of all, I'm from a medical family. So my parents have drilled your kind of logical thinking into my system as well. In terms of what you spoke about, that if you see someone with jaundice, the way your mind works as a doctor, like a medical doctor, is that you'll find the pathway to the root cause.
Yes.
And then the medicine and whatever you've learned and the constant education that you're doing even now will lead you to the solution. You cure the root of the problem. Or control it.
Yeah.
And then what you see on the surface will also start getting cured.
Exactly.
And you're improving health that way.
Exactly.
My first thought, if I'm ever ill, is to obviously go to a doctor like yourself. But as a consumer, because I am meeting such crazy people on the show, like I've met people who've practiced some kind of alternative medicine in South America, which is ayahuasca and all these things.
Okay.
Have you heard of ayahuasca?
No.
Okay. There's a botany PhD I had on the show called Mark Plotkin.
Okay.
His whole life is dedicated to plant medicine in South America.
Okay.
And one of the active ways he makes money is that he consults big pharmaceutical companies who try making medicines based on his research from the world of botany.
Okay.
So I can't remember the name of the exact plant, but serpentine.
Reserpine.
Reserpine, serpentine.
Yeah. That is Rauwolfia serpentina.
Serpentine, correct.
Yeah.
So I'm just giving one example.
Yeah.
That drug, what is it used for? Sir?
So it's used for high blood pressure.
High blood pressure.
Yeah. So that is not from South American knowledge. That's actually from Ayurveda knowledge. So in Ayurveda, even now, the Ayurveda practitioners treat high blood pressure by giving the extract of this particular plant known as Rauwolfia serpentina.
Yeah.
So the active component in that is reserpine.
Reserpine.
Now, reserpine was initially used as a BP control agent, but now it is completely stopped because it has a lot of side effects, including depression and suicidal thoughts. So that is no more used because we have no safer anti-BP, BP lowering medications at the moment. So the traditional, I'm not denying the fact that we have natural sources of medicine.
Yeah, that's what I was getting towards with Ayurveda.
Exactly. Now, if you look at Ayurveda's contribution to any particular medicine or a drug that we use currently now, it is zero. If you look at traditional Chinese medicine, there is something known as artemisinin, which is an anti-malarial drug, which was FDA approved and all that, which is one of the most common drugs that we use to treat malaria. That knowledge came from traditional Chinese medicine. But it was not traditional Chinese medicine practitioners who actually discovered that. It was actually modern medicine practitioners and modern pharmacologists who identified it based on the texts that they studied from traditional Chinese medicine. Such a similar discovery or drug discovery from Ayurveda does not exist. So we have a lot of knowledge about plants and their effects in the human body. We also have a huge database where we know what plant contains what all molecules and what all compounds. These are there. It's not like it's waiting to be discovered. This is already there. There's a huge repository, a database of all the chemical components, active components in every plant. I'll give you a very simple example. So there is this drug called, there is this plant called Ashwagandha. So Ashwagandha is heavily talked about in Ayurvedic literature. People consume it for anxiety, stress relief, and things like that. Some gym goers do it to improve their oxygen their tolerance and oxygen capacity and all that. But there are studies, it's already known that what all does Ashwagandha contains. So Ashwagandha contains a particular compound called vithanolide A, that is vithanone A, which has been shown to damage DNA of the liver cell. No, this is a fact. There's a huge study that has shown that the vithanone A component of Ashwagandha herb can actually damage the liver cell, especially by damaging the DNA. Which is why we are now getting a lot of patients with Ashwagandha related liver injury, even in my practice and across the globe. So we just recently published the largest series of Ashwagandha liver injury from our unit in the official journal of American Association of Study of Liver Diseases, which is the journal known as Hepatology Communications, a fantastic journal, high impact factor, peer-reviewed publication, where we showed that there are people who actually develop liver injury because of certain herbs, and the component in the herb that causes the liver injury is this. So what we have to do is that if we are going to identify a particular natural compound from a particular plant, we have to ensure that that natural compound is what we require and it is beneficial and safe instead of using the whole plant.
Okay. Hypothetically speaking, if some big institute carries out very, very detailed tests on Ashwagandha again, and this is my issue with studies in general, and you can talk about Dr. Huberman here also, or generally studies, I feel you have to study two opposing studies together and then look within the nooks and crannies to find gaps in both and then come to the truth.
Yeah, it's very simple. The scientific method is quite simple. You have a hypothesis, you have a theory. For example, so I know that Ashwagandha is going to reduce stress. So I know this because it's already written in maybe classical text, ancient texts. And now we have some data from preclinical studies. Preclinical means before human studies are taken up, you do the studies in the cells or tissues or in small animals. So from that, we have some data that, this Ashwagandha is reducing stress levels. Now, what in Ashwagandha is reducing stress level is the next question.
Yeah.
Now, we don't want the whole Ashwagandha. We want that particular part of it. So it may be one compound, it may be two compounds, it may be three compounds, but we have to identify it. Now you extract those one or three compounds and then test it again in animals and see that they are actually causing this beneficial effect with lesser side effects. Everything will have side effects, but you need more benefits than side effects. Oh. Now you know that in animals it is safe. So let's move on to humans. So in humans, we have phase 2, phase 3 and phase 4 studies where we look at larger groups of people, we control for a lot of other things, and then look at safety and everything. And in humans, we identify that, this particular compound or three compounds reduces stress levels. And this is what is going to be used as a drug in the future. We have to go through all of that. Yeah. So what is now happening is that people are just promoting Ashwagandha.
Okay.
Take this for stress.
I think what I'm understanding about you as a medical practitioner is that your problem is this carpet bombing of advice. That
exactly
for this problem, take Ashwagandha. It's not like that.
No, it's not like that. It has to be refined so that you know that the person who's getting it is going to benefit from it more than getting a side effect.
And if you use the sentence Ayurveda is a pseudoscience, then a consumer would view it as you're completely against the world of plants.
So the Ayurveda is not about plants. I think this is what I think people should actually understand. Ayurveda is not about plants. So plant medicine is different. So we have herbal medicine, we have traditional medicine, we have complementary medicine, we have alternative medicine. There are different forms of medicines which uses plants. Ayurveda is not about plants. Ayurveda is a principle. So it's a healthcare which includes some principles in it, which is what we are looking at. So in scientific medicine, what is the principle? The principle is scientific method. So you have to identify something as beneficial or not based on testability, falsifiability, validity, and replication. This has to be there. In Ayurveda, it's based on beliefs and observation, which is done in the past without further testability, accountability, or any other changes that has been made. So something that is written 3,000 years back, following it again in 2024 doesn't make sense. So that is what I'm calling as pseudoscience. I'm not calling as that plant part as pseudoscience. I'm calling the principles as pseudoscience. So the whole of Ayurveda, if you take away the principles, it ceases to exist.
Got it. So fair to say that from all the stuff written in Ayurvedic texts, there might be some things that need to be studied further and then can be applied into modern medical science.
Exactly. So there will be something there that we can actually use for drug discovery.
Okay.
So drug discovery is actually one of the most powerful arms of scientific medicine. It has nothing to do with traditional medicine or alternative medicine.
But don't you think it can get inspiration from aspects of traditional medicine?
Yeah, so we borrow observational knowledge or observed entities from traditions, but then what we do to it is based on the scientific method.
Sure.
Because if you leave it to the traditional healers to find a cure for hepatitis B, they will never. Right? They will still be stuck on that herb that I used that time. That is the only herb. They'll be stuck like that. But you put it in a scientific method, they will find what in that herb actually did that and then make it a drug. I mean, I have read the whole of Ayurveda text, which is taught as part of curriculum in BAMS. So there is a Bachelor of Ayurvedic Medicine and Sciences that is taught in India. It's a 5-year course. They have all these textbooks in the curriculum. I have all those textbooks in my house.
Yeah.
It happened so because when I was actually talking about Ayurveda practices and products, not practice per se, products related liver injury, of which I have the first publication in the world. A lot of patients actually died because of herbal liver injuries, and we had to transplant some. It was a huge study. That
is it something related to heavy metals?
So heavy metals were part of it, but then there are also inherent toxic plants also. There are some plants which are very harmful for the liver. For example, giloy, Tinospora cordifolia, which is giloy that we commonly call as guduchi. It's very toxic to the liver. Ashwagandha in some people are very toxic. Green tea is a very toxic thing to the liver. Green tea extracts. So there are plants that are toxic to the liver. So when we published that particular study and started talking about it, there was a lot of backlash because people did not understand the whole aspect of how we approach it. It's from this scientific medicine perspective, from evidence-based point of view. So instead of publishing on side effects, we actually need to publish on the benefits of it. So which is why I say that it's not just the herbals that are part of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a huge thing. I mean, it's a huge practice. And what I read from the texts of Ayurveda, what they were teaching in the colleges is that it's mostly to do with just practicing it. You find a person, you look at whatever the principles they follow, and then you serve them this particular bunch of herbs or whatever. And it may contain heavy metals as part of the preparation, or it may be a contamination or adulteration of it, or it might be that plant which is already toxic that is causing the problem. So that is a whole aspect of what I have found from my own clinical research work.
The only fair way to do this breakdown conversation is to actually have an Ayurveda expert with you who's as eloquent as you. And for you guys to talk.
So
and I'm giving you a consumer perspective here.
I understand. I mean, I have invited a lot of Ayurveds to talk on Clubhouse, talk on Twitter. They don't come. I mean, I'm inviting them. Anybody wants to have a realistic conversation on how to approach patients and diseases from an Ayurvedic perspective versus a scientific medicine perspective, I will guarantee that I can change their way of thinking on how medical science actually works. This is something known as appeal to antiquity, which means that just because something was there for so long doesn't mean that it is actually useful. For example, we've had modes of transportation which was possibly bullock carts many decades ago or centuries ago, or animal-based modes of transport. But at that time it was good. But now we have better modes of transport. So we use them now. So just because it was good at that time doesn't mean it is better now or can be considered equal to the modes of transportation that we have now. So that is known as appeal to antiquity. It's a logical fallacy which a lot of people actually make. And the second aspect is that about mixing both. So you have a scientific evidence-based practice and you have this traditional wisdom or knowledge, and you include that also in this to get best of both worlds. This is what is classically known as integrative medicine. So I have integrative medicine. So integrative medicine is you have scientific medicine or real medicine, and then you put in some alternative medicine also into it to see you getting the best of both worlds, and a lot of people practice it. What I'm going to say might not be very digestible for people, but the way I see integrative medicine is, you have a glass of apple juice and you have a glass of urine. So you mix this urine with apple juice. What are you going to gain from it? Are you going to say that the urine gets better because it's in the apple juice now, or the apple juice is getting worse because the urine is there? That is integrative medicine. Something that works and something that does not work. You mix both. You are giving undue credit to the thing that does not work. So that is why, even though we have this traditional knowledge and wisdom and all that, we don't have evidence of them actually working.
But what if they invest time, resources into doing the research? Would you change your mind if you saw the research?
I mean, see, I'm not denying the fact that there is no research. Huge research is going on in this aspect. I mean, look at our country. I mean, look at India. Every budget, 3,000 crore INR is given to the Ayush Ministry to conduct research. Now it's been almost, say, 10-14 years, and this research has been going on even before. Tell me one traditional Ayurvedic formulation which is recommended or approved for any disease condition known to humans by any clinical society in the world.
We need an Ayurvedic doctor for that.
No, I mean, I'll tell you the answer, zero. Because I am treating patients for a lot of disease conditions. Endocrinologists are treating. There are guidelines for treatment of all disease conditions in the world, and none of them feature Ayurveda. None of them feature homeopathy. Why? Because that is alternative medicine. Alternative medicine is medicine that has not proven to be working or has been disproven from working. So that is why they are there, and realistic medicine is here. So this is, I mean, it will come out as a strong opinion on evidence-based medicine. But for when I look at it from a patient perspective, just imagine. I mean, I'm telling this from my own experience. So I said, I mean, we have a lot of patients with hepatitis A, right? So hepatitis A patients have usually, in 99% of patients, the hepatitis A, it presents with jaundice, abnormal liver function, and the patients have nausea, vomiting, general low appetite and all that for a few weeks. And then the jaundice settles within 4 to 6 weeks. That is what is happening in 99% of patients. So all they need is good nutrition, simple supportive medications for nausea, vomiting and all that, and they're fine. But imagine this patient is going to a traditional medicine healer or an Ayurveda or a herbalist, and they give him, take these herbs for jaundice. Now, some of these herbs are not tested. They're not evidence-based herbs for this particular condition. There is no data to it. It's just based on their generational knowledge or ancient wisdom they're giving. Now, instead of getting better, the herbs are going to cause liver injury, herbal liver injury, on top of hepatitis A. So that patient, instead of getting better within 4 to 6 weeks, lands up in a hospital, undergoes a liver biopsy, takes about 2 to 3 months for things to get improved, spends more money than what is required. So this is what happens when you mix something that is not evidence-based with something that is evidence-based or not.
Okay.
Right. So that is why I want even Ayurveda practitioners to bring to the table evidences, not observation and faith-based, but actual evidences, empirical evidence from studies, and not just simple studies or reports, proper clinical phase trials on evidence level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are clinical levels of evidence that we have to follow. So evidence level 1 and clinical evidence 2 is the ultimate. So if you have such data, that means that that treatment is going to be approved or recommended for that particular condition. There is no such data.
Okay. We spoke about Lane Norton and Andrew Huberman.
Yeah.
He's a
neurobiologist.
Neurobiologist. So I'm not. I'm an engineer who's turned into a content creator. There's no way that I'll be able to take you on in like disease-based conversation.
I understand.
We need like an Ayurvedic person for it. Okay, but what I will give you again is little consumer perspective,
which is what we want,
So we spoke that first theory, like we spoke about that you can't take an old thing and just antiquity.
Yeah, appeal to antiquity.
Appeal to antiquity.
Or appeal to tradition, we call it.
My only reason for being open to appeal to antiquity is based on my own subjective life experience, which is that until age 22, I was very against meditation, pranayama, yoga also.
Yeah.
And as life has moved forward, not only have I become open to it based on my own experiences, but it benefited my own subjective reality. Meditation specifically.
I understand. From a personal perspective.
Which is where I think a lot of Ayurveda cheerleaders come from, that maybe in their subjective reality, it may have helped them.
Exactly. So these are known as anecdotal experiences, which is not part of the scientific methodology.
It just makes people open to the possibility, because also, say again, I'm using meditation, yoga and pranayam as three kind of topics amongst a vast number of misunderstood or ununderstood topics from ancient wisdom. I feel like these three have been researched upon and are being researched upon very actively.
Actively, yes. But then we are still waiting for good levels of evidence on all of these. There are preliminary evidence that says that it has usefulness in certain group of patients or certain group of disorders. But we are waiting for, like I said, clinical levels of evidence 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 is basically like this. Personal anecdotes and opinions. Then comes case reports, case series, randomized controlled trials, then comes meta-analysis of these trials, and then comes umbrella review of those meta-analysis of trials. It's that is the ultimate evidence. So until we have that, we will not recommend it. That is how the scientific medicine works.
I understand what you're saying. I think all these domains are trying to explore just what's on that other side of the wall.
Exactly.
Which also brings me to that urine apple juice thing.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, because probably you've seen patients who have gone to an Ayurvedic doctor and things have not resulted good. They've actually created a bigger problem for you as a medical doctor. And that's why you view it as urine instead of whatever it is.
Yeah, it's supposed to, it doesn't make apple juice better, but it makes it worse.
In my science, it's definitely apple juice. But I view this whole world of ancient wisdom not as urine, but as cloudy grape juice. Like in terms of there might be a lot of gunk there, but it's yet to be researched upon and understood. Like I would like to see decades of scientific research going into the direction of all the ancient wisdom, be it South American, Chinese, Indian. After decades of research, because your industry, which is medical science, has had decades of research behind it. So it's the advantage your argument has in the first place.
Yeah. So but it should be structured research, I'm not denying the fact that, yoga or Ayurveda or homeopathy has no research. They are doing they have their own journals and they have their own publications and everything, but it's not structured the way it has to be. You cannot use that as a modus operandi for, treating patients because it's there.
Yeah. See, if 10, 20 years later, we have the same conversation and the compass has not moved at all, like if the argument that you're making now is still valid, then I'll be completely on your side.
Yeah, but 10 years we'll have this conversation.
I need to wait for like 2-3 more decades, honestly.
I understand.
Unless someone does like very ferociously fast research, which I don't think is possible.
It takes time. But then I understand that, Ayurveda is not something that has come yesterday. It has been there for centuries. We have been doing it for decades, and still, what would a couple of decades add to it?
One last point I'll make is, I started this podcast in many ways for my own curiosity, to ask questions, to further my own understanding rather than to just like put forward what I think. And I began there. And after meeting so many people, I've really begun to think that, okay, true knowledge is knowing that you know nothing. That allows you to like keep expanding, which is why I'm like, nudging.
I understand, yeah.
But I've also noticed that people who come from a scientific background, be it yourself, be it Dr. Huberman, even two scientific temperament oriented people, for example, you're disagreeing with Dr. Huberman on some stuff.
Yes, I do disagree on some stuff. Yeah. But he's got a really good outlook at how the neurobiology is, and especially his older videos. Fantastic. But some of them are not.
Both of you are still following the same scientific structure of thought, I feel. Yeah. At least your own.
Yeah, he does that. But then there are instances where he just blindly promotes based on very low levels of evidence.
So the consumer angle is perhaps, and I'm not accusing you of anything, sir, but maybe even you are doing the same thing. Like this is the consumer perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not accusing you at all.
Yeah, no, I understand where this comes from, but Huberman is not a clinical doctor. Right. So I would not take his advice as clinical advice at all. I am a clinical doctor. And when I treat patients or I talk about treatments, they're always evidence-based. And they're not based on flimsy preclinical evidence.
Consumer perspective, that's what Huberman also says, that it's all evidence-based. So
so that's where we have this domain expertise, right? You have to...
I'm viewing you both as champions of science. One is Spider-Man with certain powers, one is Iron Man with certain powers. So all I can do is observe what you guys are seeing, but I feel like some human emotion and some human biases always come into science.
So I'm saying that, and I'm giving additional pictures to it.
Sure.
You know, so somebody says that, you know, this is what is given in this evidence, so this is what you should take. I'm saying that, you know, this is also there. So take this also into consideration. I'm not saying that this is completely wrong or completely right. I'm saying that there is a balance, and it's a logical balance that people can take for themselves, because I am very transparent in putting up my evidence there.
Yeah.
Huberman may hide proper evidence or may not hide. I don't know. But whenever there is evidence that is hidden, I just bring it out. And I don't do it for everything. There are certain areas where I feel that there is a misinformation. That's all.
I need to have Dr. Huberman on the show with you too. That's the truth.
I mean, like I said, it has to be on the same page, right? Everything has to be on the same page. I mean, for or against, it has to be on the same page. And then people balance benefits to risk ratio regarding that particular intervention and then take the right call.
Yeah.
And that is what we are doing here.
Also, again, this is like a little meta, but on a human level, this is what life is. In terms of you observe the world and then eventually you do what you think is best.
Observe, test, validate, replicate.
Okay.
That's it.
Before I let you go on today, because we're out of time for our first episode.
Yeah.
I have to ask you about the liver again, because that's the overarching theme. I think people enjoyed the cage fight. This was a very cute cage fight.
Yeah, because it was interesting. And I love such conversations where there is balance to what we discuss.
Yeah. Before we head into our second episode, very quick kind of recap on lifestyle related factors for liver health, just to summarize a bit of this episode, because we have to do a whole episode on alcohol.
Yeah,
I think it's a very practical, modern, urban problem. But minus the alcohol side of things, what would you put as lifestyle-based factors for healthy liver health?
We have some very interesting things that we can do. So first is that one is something known as preventive medicine, which is very important, that you do a set of things or you avoid a set of things, you can actually avoid getting into trouble. So doctors don't want damage control. They actually want people not to get sick. So the number one is that physical activity is very important for liver health. By physical activity, I mean, and this is studied also well, you need to have 150 minutes of moderate to rigorous physical activity per week, which is easily doable for everybody. So it's 150 minutes of moderate to rigorous physical activity in a week. So let me define moderate and rigorous. So moderate is just cycling, swimming, brisk walking. Brisk walking is basically you take 100 steps in a minute. So that's 100 steps in 60 seconds. That's brisk walking. Or simply running for at least 3 hours to 4 hours in a week. So that is good moderate physical activity. Rigorous is what you do inside a gym under a trained protocol where there is structure, and you actually do a lot of aerobic exercises, you do weight training, you do resistance training, you do high intensity exercises, you do circuit training. All of this will come under vigorous activity. This actually helps prevent a lot of liver related diseases, especially the ones to do with metabolic liver disease, that is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and other things. Second is, like I spoke before, black coffee is a very good intervention that you can include in your diet. 3 cups, which is about 150 ml each every day.
Perhaps decaf.
And decaf. So if somebody cannot take caffeine, does not tolerate caffeine, you can go for decaf, because caffeine is not the good part of coffee. It's something known as polyphenol. And coffee is another intervention that you can do. Third is sleep, which is very important, because poor quality sleep, non-restorative sleep, lack of sleep, these all promote poor liver health in the form of fatty liver disease. So sleep, try to get at least 7 hours minimum every day. And the fourth is that identify yourself as having some risk factor for liver disease. For example, if you have immediate family members with liver disease, and if they've had metabolic disease like diabetes or obesity or heart disease or stroke or high cholesterol, high blood pressure, anything. So you are directly at risk of developing liver disease. So please check yourself in the sense that you go to a doctor, get a physical health checkup, and also a checkup for the liver. So liver checkup can include liver function test as part of the blood work. And in the liver function test, if they find some abnormality, plus you have some additional diseases that are putting you at risk for the liver disease, then they will ask you to do advanced liver testing, which may or may not include special types of imaging. Something everybody knows, like fibroscan or shear wave, which is basically ultrasound related imaging, which they will do from the outside and identify if the liver health is good or not by looking at the liver stiffness.
How expensive is it?
It's anywhere from free, because there are a lot of companies and camps that do it for free, to 3,000 rupees.
Okay.
So it's not done for everyone. It's done for those with high risk of liver disease, especially from metabolic or alcohol related liver disease. So that is how you do a liver checkup, and those who need to do liver checkup. The fourth is, please get vaccinated for hepatitis B. You need to know if you are protected against hepatitis B or not. Simple. Just do two blood tests. One is a test called as HBsAg, and second is a test known as anti-HBs. If HBsAg is not reactive, negative, and anti-HBs is not reactive or negative, that means that you need to get vaccinated, because you don't have the infection, you don't have the protection also. If HBsAg is positive, that means you have the infection. In that sense, anti-HBs will be negative. Anti-HBs is basically antibodies or protection against hepatitis B. But if you are protected, then your HBsAg will be negative and anti-HBs, antibodies to hepatitis B, will be positive. So that positivity also matters. So if your antibody titers, that levels of antibody against hepatitis B in your body is more than 10 but less than 100, then you have to take a booster only of the hepatitis B vaccine. But if it is more than 100, you are well protected. You don't need to take any vaccine at all. Simple things. I mean, these are preventable causes for liver disease.
Is there any other test you'd recommend that just an average healthy person take to figure out liver function?
I would not recommend any such tests, because ideally we want to save resources and use resources for people who require it. So stressing the health system doesn't make sense for me. But if there are risk factors, definitely. And also I would like to say that liver function test does not actually mean it shows a healthy liver. So a lot of liver cancer patients that I treat, they have perfectly normal liver function tests, even better than mine, but they have liver cancer. So, but they have risk factors for liver cancer, for example, hepatitis B, diabetes, obesity, alcohol use. They still have normal liver functions. So we have to look everything from a whole perspective.
Damn. Okay. Liver doc.
Yeah.
Sir, thank you. This was a great first episode. We've not even touched upon alcohol, and that's a whole segment. So that'll be a sequel. But I'll say is it was great getting to know you off of social media. Like, I was waiting for this, and I think it's not just me. There's a lot of people who need to get to know you because you're doing great work for the Indian medical community. I know, because I spoke to the doctors and they gave me a medical perspective on you. So I'm just glad to be doing it through our platform.
I'm also very glad that we had this conversation, and it was really enriching for me also. And I hope the viewers also identify this as one of the best podcasts they have heard on your channel.
No, 100%. The good news is that the only two podcasts that grow over time, like constantly, are spirituality based stuff and medical stuff. It's just these two. So I hope that this stays on the internet for like 20 years and just keeps giving.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we'll head into a second one.
Thank you.
That was the episode for today, and we have recorded a second one with the liver doc, which is much more casual, lots more jokes, lots of chatter about liver damage, because that episode is about alcohol. The A to Z about alcohol. It's one of the most important episodes for me, because I've been on both ends of the spectrum, drank a lot in my life. I'm a teetotaler currently. So if you enjoyed this episode, you're going to enjoy that episode as much, if not more. It's a very casual side of the liver doc that you'll get to see in that one. Enjoying the heck out of this biology phase of TRS. I'm so glad that the audiences are finally accepting content that's so deep, that's so medical. Love talking to doctors. It's some of the most fun, interesting, invigorating conversations. Please tell me what are the topics you'd like for us to cover on TRS. I'm happy to do 3-hour podcasts with doctors. I'm happy to keep making content like this for the rest of my life, honestly. Give me a feedback in the comment section. And you guys will now kind of be open to the possibility that even TRS can create some medical content, some kind of biology. I highly recommend that you check out our other medical podcasts. They're as deep as this one. I welcome everyone, especially those who have the ability to change their mind and change their perception about people once they watch long form content. I feel that the truth about an online persona or a content creator can only be understood when you watch them over the course of a long conversation. So you're welcome. There's a massive library full of scientific content, full of spiritual content that you may or may not like, but at least explore it first. And for the ones who supported TRS, lots of love to you guys. Big hugs. We'll be back with another biology special very soon.